In modern-day healthcare, regulations and standards of care are very much based on ethical principles. Healthcare professionals are bound by both regulated standards and professional frameworks, and also as individuals with their own professional codes of conduct, who are responsible for their own actions and decisions. So what does this mean for healthcare professionals? Let's begin with ethics. Evidence of medical ethics can be traced as far back as the ancient Greeks. The term ethics is derived by the Greek word ethos, meaning character or spirit and attitudes of people and cultures. The Collins Concise Dictionary describes ethics as conscience or moral principles held by people about what is right and wrong. Resnick of the National Institute of Environmental Health and Sciences says that the most common way to define ethics is the norms of conduct that distinguish between acceptable and unacceptable behavior. The ethos of medical practice is underpinned by the Hippocratic Oath, which is to act in the best interest of patients and to keep them from harm. Beauchamp and Childress identified 4 essential principles for moral reasoning in the health profession, the first being autonomy. This is achieved through the empowerment and enabling of individuals making their own choices. People should not be coerced into making a decision. However, some patients may require assistance, young children as an example. Non-maleficence is to avoid causing harm to others, although a wide range of medical treatments conflict against this principle. For example, the side effects of a treatment. Beneficence, to do good by promoting the patient's interests and protecting the vulnerable. However, beneficence and autonomy are often conflicted. For example, when a patient is refusing to eat. Finally, justice is to ensure that an individual's human rights are upheld regardless of their capabilities and competence. This is the principle of equality. Ethical frameworks. The term bioethics is used to describe how ethical theories and principles are applied in healthcare. In the 1970s, this came into effect when the focus of healthcare moved away from curing disease towards caring for the individual as a whole. Bioethics is defined by the ethical obligations of professionals working in biological sciences such as nursing and midwifery, in order to help them manage everyday healthcare situations. A firm ethical framework is extremely important for healthcare professionals in order to maximize the health of patients by doing what is right, good and lawful. Ethics need to be essential in everyday practice to maintain healthcare services at an expected standard. The Code of Professional Standard of Practice and Behaviour for Nurses and Midwives is an ethical framework set by the Nursing and Midwifery Council that guides good nursing and midwifery practice. This includes a series of statements under the following competencies: prioritise people, practice effectively, preserve safety and promote professionalism and trust. The General Medical Council and British Medical Association also provides guidance on a range of ethical topics. Healthcare professionals regularly face ethical dilemmas and often have to rely on their professional codes of ethics to aid them to make the best decisions. Advances in medical technology and sciences continue to bring new dilemmas. One key example being life support. Permission from distressed relatives to turn off life support creates an ethical dilemma. In stressful situations, conflict is more likely to occur, and this often happens when an individual's personal beliefs, values and attitudes are challenged. A further example could be genetic screening to identify inherited disabilities such as Down syndrome. Ethicists would argue that this supports discrimination against disabled people and suggests that their lives are less worthwhile, and this understandably makes disabled people feel less valued in society. Informed consent is an agreement between a healthcare professional and a patient in the form of a written signed contract. This is obtained from patients before proceeding with any interventions. However, some patients are not considered competent to provide this. For example, unconscious patients or young children. Special communication skills are used to ascertain capability. Next of kin or legal guardians may be asked to give consent if the patient is unable to do so, and if nobody is available to give consent to treatment, then it is lawful for the medical staff to give urgent treatment if it is in the best interest of the patient. If consensus is not achieved in consent, then the decision can be referred to the courts under the Children Act of 1989 or under the Mental Health Act of 1983 or 2007. This can happen when there is a disagreement in the best interest of the patient. For example, if one party is withholding consent and this would result in serious consequences. Sadly, this was the case quite recently for Alfie Evans, whose parents fought for his life support to remain on in order for him to travel to a hospital in Italy. But the courts and medical staff thought this was not in the best interest of Alfie, who thought his life support should be switched off. There have also been cases in court where the patient is refusing further treatment against the wishes of their family. The BMA have outlined some key concepts which are likely to be engaged when confronting ethical dilemmas in medical practice. Self-determination, also known as autonomy, which we previously discussed, is the ability to decide for oneself, so competent adults have the right to refuse any proposed medical intervention, even when this could lead to death. Capacity or competence. This is a decision made by someone lacking in capacity which can be overridden. Confidentiality. Respect of the patient's confidence is essential to good medical practice, and if this isn't sustained, consequences could include patients withholding relevant information and a loss of trust in the medical profession. Honesty and truth-telling. Communication of information which is believed to be truthful and not intended to deceive the patient or recipient. This plays an important role in self-determination. Benefit and harm. To do good and avoid doing harm. Often in medicine, there is a risk of doing harm to achieve doing good, and sometimes there is a disagreement whether this benefits outweigh the risks or harm. Fairness or equity. People should be treated fairly. Equal needs should be given equal consideration with no discrimination. Although health services should also be distributed accordingly to moral reason and not at random. Lastly, rights. This will include legal rights and also moral rights, which relates to basic human interest or entitlement, and these cannot be ignored or taken away irrespective of how others may benefit. In summary, defining ethics in medicine and healthcare is a complex issue, and the importance is clear to maintain professional standards of practice and behaviour to guide judgments and actions. Having identified and analysed some of the ethical situations that affect the healthcare professional, such as developments in scientific technology, we can better understand the policies, procedures and standards set by professional organisations and how they guide professionals in their practice and delivery of service.